You're watching The Legal Breakdown. We have a bit of a different episode today. As many of you know, Eleanor Holmes Norton, who was the D.C. delegate to Congress from Washington, D.C., will no longer be representing the Capitol in Congress. And so running to take her place, we have Kinney Zalesne. Kinney, thank you so much for joining us. We have a few questions Glenn and I are going to kind of alternate here and ask, but I wanted to start off by asking about the $1.776 billion slush fund that obviously has a lot to do with Washington, D.C., considering these 1,500 pardoned insurrectionists are those who would be eligible to collect from this fund. Glenn and I have discussed the fact that we now have a temporary restraining order on this issue, but more broadly, can I have your reaction to the fact that while Donald Trump is supposed to be delivering on his promises of making things more affordable for Americans, that instead his priority is making sure that these 1,500 insurrectionists can become millionaires?
Yes. So first, let me say, Brian and Glenn, thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm really delighted to be here. Everything that Trump does is an affront to those of us who live in Washington, D.C. We're on the front lines, and we feel that all the pain that the nation feels, we feel it 10 times worse. So this slush fund is a perfect example. It's our city that was attacked on January 6th. It's our police officers who were wounded and who rose bravely to the challenge on that day. I mean, of course, it's an assault on the whole nation, but this is our city. And for him to take that enormous amount of money and dedicate it to criminals, when meanwhile he lies about the crime rate in this city, but he's a criminal and he defends and funds criminals, and to also use that fund or that initiative to insulate himself and his family from prosecution for obvious wrongdoing. Like every single move, it offends the nation, but it offends the 700,000 of us in D.C. all in even more acute ways.
Kinney, it's great to see you. Full disclosure, I've been at some of Kinney's campaign events recently, and I am a big supporter. I care deeply about the District of Columbia. I worked there for decades, particularly in the violent crime arena. And so, I have a certain relationship with D.C. that continues to this day. Here's what I want to ask you, Kinney. People have different views of Washington, D.C. Some people will, it's the city of politics. And I hesitate to bring this up, but back in the early 90s, we were attacking the murder problem, the violent crime problem. And, we know that it used to be referred to as the murder capital of the world. I am pleased to say that is no longer the case. I like to think myself and the police officers, the detectives who fought against the violent crime epidemic for decades has made D.C. a much safer place. You have a particular view of Washington, D.C., and you've used a term to describe it that I found really compelling. Can you tell us what that is?
Yes. And thank you, Glenn, for everything. It's great to see you again, as always. So I have lived in this city for 30 years, and I've been a candidate for this delegate seat for 9 months. And it has been very important to me to be able to articulate what is it that unites this whole city. It's easy to say what divides us, but I was determined to figure out what binds us and bonds us across all 8 wards. And here's what I think. New York is the city of money. LA is the city of fame. But DC is the city of service. And it's not just federal service, although that's a huge part of it. It's community service, it's neighborhood service, it's service to one another. And that's the thing I find in every neighborhood, in every ward in this city. People across DC just have like a higher set point in our DNA for the idea that we belong to something larger than ourselves, and that it's our job to serve one another in whatever form that takes, whatever sector that takes, whatever activities that takes. But we serve in this city. And the reason I think that's important is for 2 reasons. One, we are up against some very serious odds. That Trump and the MAGA Republicans have launched an assault on our autonomy and our economy. So if we're going to win, if we're going to be able to beat these very difficult odds, we have to know our shared strength and we have to draw on it. So knowing what we have in common is critical. And the other reason it's so important that we understand and celebrate that we're the city of service is that the rest of the country desperately needs this. They need what we have to give. So someday soon, God willing, Trump will be gone and the Democrats will take back power. And we will have to, as a nation, revisit what is important to us. What are our values? What do we fight and die for? And I think DC has a huge amount to offer that conversation because we understand service. We know what government can do, what it should do, what it must never do. That's in our bones and in our DNA. And it's a gift and it's a contribution that the rest of the country needs. And we in DC are happy to offer it, happy to contribute. And that's where we're going to have to go as a country.
Can you talk a little bit about your stance on statehood for DC?
So it is a national embarrassment that 700,000 of us in DC don't have the same rights as every other American. To us, it's so obvious. I'm not sure if people all over the country really even understand. We have one representative in Congress, but she cannot vote on the House floor. We have 0 representatives in the Senate. So we don't get to participate in American democracy the way every other American can. Now, at the same time, we pay more per capita in federal taxes than any state in the country. We pay more in absolute dollars than something like 13 or 15 states. We fight in every war. Our citizens die in every war. We serve this country, and we don't have the same rights as everybody else. People seem to think like, oh yeah, wasn't that like, I don't know, didn't it come down from Mount Sinai, or at least the Constitution, that if you live in DC, you can't vote? You know, it's just like some kind of deal we struck at some point. And that is just not true. The Constitution does require a federal district, but that can be just the Capitol, the White House, the Supreme Court, and a couple of museums. It does not have to include the 700,000 of us. It doesn't have to exclude us as citizens. We ought to be a state. We ought to have the same rights as everybody else. This is a 250-year-old mistake, and we've got to fix it.
And just as a follow-up to that, if I can, Glenn, if Democrats are able to come together to A, garner a majority, and B, eliminate the filibuster, is that something that you will dedicate your service to pursuing?
Yes, but let me be clear. We had the trifecta not too long ago. We had a Democratic House, we had a Democratic Senate, and we had a Democratic White House. And we didn't make any progress on DC statehood. So I want to be clear that the first frontier in this fight is with our own Democratic Party. We have to elevate this issue among our own friends and allies in the Democratic Party, which they should be delighted to do because we would get 2 new Democratic senators. But they haven't in the past prioritized us. And so in what I hope will be my first term as DC delegate, in the next 2 years, while Trump is still in the White House, we need to lay that groundwork inside our own party. Then we need to pick off the Republicans, either to beat the filibuster, or if there's a carve out from the filibuster, then that's how we'll get all the way to a grand bargain to make this possible. But I just want to be clear that it's a multi-step fight, and we need the Democrats nationwide to join our fight and not leave us stranded and abandoned.
Okay, so let me kind of follow up on that as well. I've heard you talk about how, one of your goals is to get to Congress and build coalitions, build support so that, there will be people there helping you fight the battles that need to be fought on behalf of the District of Columbia residents. And I know I've called you a triple threat because you have significant government experience. You were counsel to Janet Reno when she was the Attorney General. You led the strategy team at Microsoft, and you build a really important nonprofit to help underprivileged girls, I think. Was it
no, boys
underprivileged students, low-income students get to college? I mean, When I see candidates who have significant experience in the public sector, in the private sector, and in the nonprofit sector, I call those people a triple threat, because you're going to need all those skills to help you build coalitions in Congress. So listen, Eleanor Holmes Norton has been the delegate from D.C. for more than 30 years, I believe, and I know she did her best, but look at where we are on statehood. What is your goal? What is your approach to the power that you do have, not to vote in Congress, but to build those coalitions?
Yes. Well, first, let me say I prefer not to call it a triple threat. I prefer to call it like a tri-sector athlete or something a little more positive. But I totally agree with you that that today's leaders must be tri-sector athletes. They must have experience in all three sectors, because our problems today are so complicated that no one sector is going to solve them. The government is not going to fix our problems, and neither is the business sector, and neither is the nonprofit sector all alone. But the answers, the innovations will come from the seams between those sectors, across those sectors. And if you have worked in senior levels in all of them, then you understand the vocabulary, you understand the metrics, you understand the different kinds of innovation. And that's what voters should demand of their leaders today in every office. So I am delighted to bring those skills and that background to these very complicated problems that we have here in DC. Now, to your point about how are we going to maneuver towards statehood, how are we going to build the right coalition? So I think it's three steps along the way. First, we have to mobilize and really galvanize and focus the commitment to DC statehood here in DC. Everybody says they want it, but even we aren't conditioned really to fight for it every day. I mean, this is a civil rights struggle, and you don't win civil rights struggles like part-time on the weekends when somebody else brings it up. Like, everyone in DC needs to be a soldier for this cause. We need to tell our colleagues and our cousins who live in states around this country that this is our number one concern. So that's step one. Number two, we have to elevate this issue in our own Democratic Party, as we were just talking about. They have to put this at the top of the list, not just somewhere on the list. And then the third step is to approach the Republicans. And people ask me all the time, well, how are you going to convince all the Republicans to make us a state? And it's like, we don't need to convince all the Republicans. We will never do that. We just need a few. Once we have our own party behind us, lockstep, we just need enough to beat the filibuster, or we need to carve out to the filibuster. And that will be a retail enterprise. It's not a mass market persuasion of Republican leaders who will never accept 2 new Democratic senators without a fight. But we need just enough of them. And we need to know what their interests are and what they're willing to negotiate on so that we can get done what we need done.
As Donald Trump continues to embark on these vanity projects for himself, can I just have your general reaction to all of where he's put his attention? All of it is in your backyard in Washington, D.C., but we've seen so much attention paid to the ballroom, to the reflecting pool and the rose garden and the walkway, and obviously his jet. And so it's again, all of these vanity projects, put his name on the Kennedy Center, putting his, frankly, name wherever he can get it, trying to build an arch. Just your general reaction to the fact that this is where his priority lies in the face of people having so much difficulty affording everyday life.
I mean, it's so shameful. It's such a travesty. It's a crime. And I feel sorry for the people who voted for him if they believed that he was going to help their pocketbooks, if they trusted that he cared about their cost of living, their quality of life, because he screwed them more than anybody. The rest of us knew he would never deliver on it. But the people who trusted him, it's such a deep crime and sin against the people that he swore to represent. And people are really suffering now. People are really struggling. And for him to take the American people's money and spend it on, as you said, vanity projects to himself, putting his name on everything, protecting criminals, insulating himself and his family from legitimate prosecution, I mean, he just, in addition to that very long list of things, he's now putting like 12 new statues of slaveholders right in our Freedom Plaza. Like every opportunity he has to insult us, to demean us, to wield his power over us in such a petty and painful way, that's what he does. So, I mean, the slush fund you mentioned at the top is like graft and corruption at its core. And the statues in Freedom Plaza are like just emotionally and historically painful. But we run the whole gamut of offense and insult, right? From the worst things you can do to the most superficial things you can do. And it all is painful to us. It's all an affront to democracy. It's an affront to our dignity, all of us as Americans. I just can't wait to be past this moment in American history.
You know, Kinney, on a brighter note, can I ask you about a really important and exciting endorsement you just got? So I owe, to a large degree, I owe my career with the Department of Justice as a federal prosecutor to the man who decided to take a chance on an old gutter kid from Jersey and an old Army prosecutor and make him a federal prosecutor at the Department of Justice. And that man is Eric Holder. People may not know, certainly before he was Barack Obama's Attorney General, he was a judge in local court in Washington, D.C., yes, albeit a presidentially appointed judge. And then he became the United States Attorney for the District of Columbia. And his first batch of hires included this old Jersey guy. Mm-hmm. And I never looked back. I spent my entire career there. And I got that shot courtesy of Eric Holder. He really knows D.C. in unique and intimate ways. Can you explain that and explain how important it is to have Eric Holder's endorsement for your candidacy?
Yes. So, as you said, Eric was the U.S. Attorney General and also the D.C. U.S. Attorney, and before that, a Superior Court judge. And he's lived here for like many decades. If anybody knows the complex, unusual, unique interplay between Washington, D.C. and the federal government, it's Eric. He is the nexus between local and national in this city. So for him to look across the candidates in this race and choose me is a deep honor and a deep privilege. And what he said in his endorsement was, this is not a time for regular politicians. The stakes are too high for DC. We need to choose someone who is a proven national fighter on the national stage, and that person is Kinney Zalesne. And I'm so grateful to him for that endorsement, for that confidence, for that support. And I think the voters of DC are paying attention. And some of my opponents are saying, well, this is a civil rights seat, and therefore only they can fill the seat. And I agree, we have a big role to play in the civil rights movement. And I so appreciate that Eric says that I'm the right person to lead that fight. Oh, one other key thing. In addition to the many things that Eric has done in the past, right now, he is running, along with Barack Obama, the National Democratic Redistricting Committee. So he is in charge for the entire nation of correcting the systemic and structural assault that the Republicans are waging against the Democrats. And he is in charge of fixing the maps and the redistricting strategy so that we can have free and fair votes, one person, one vote, as we should have. So Eric and I have agreed to work together closely to elevate DC statehood as part of that national strategy. So the Democrats are rightfully and righteously indignant and protesting about voter suppression, voter intimidation, redistricting, all the unfair things that are going on to suppress our vote, right? We in DC don't even have a vote to suppress. We don't even have the status to be intimidated. We can't be redistricted out of our vote because our district doesn't have a vote. So we need to be ground zero for this problem. We need to be the first issue, not a footnote. We need to be the first issue in the voting rights fight, in the civil rights fight. And Eric is leading that charge along with Barack Obama, who, by the way, was a law school classmate of mine. And I couldn't be more eager to work with them to prioritize and centralize DC statehood in this effort.
For folks who are looking to help your campaign, where can they go?
Well, thank you. And my website is www.kinney4dc.com, KINNEYFORDC.com. We just have 18 days to go. The primary is June 16th. I would love support in any form, financial support, door knocking, spread the word, tell everyone you know in DC how high stakes this election is. It's the first time in 36 years that Eleanor Holmes Norton's name is not on the ballot. And it's the highest stakes we've faced in decades. We are under attack, our autonomy and our economy. And I'm the only one in the race who has deep national political relationships and deep national business relationships. And we're going to need both to succeed, to beat our odds and to win this fight. So I would love support from anyone and everyone. This fight matters. DC matters. Please take note of our plight and our opportunity, and let's get our A-team in place on June 16th so that we can defend DC's rights and advance our interests.
Excellent. We're going to put a link to your website right here on the screen and also in the post description. Thank you so much for taking the time. Glenn, thank you for joining me here, and best of luck in the campaign trail.
I'm so glad to be with you both. Thanks for everything.